Welcome to session number 21. We're 20 hours down now, and I hope that you're going strong and we're on the final stretch now as we head into the final 4 hours of our 24-hour intensive marathon. Now, we've got another session on properties now with Eduardo Rolan, and Eduardo's based in Puerto Rico in North America. Now, the one thing that I love about this approach is it's taking Archicad and a feature that it has and finding a different way of using it to essentially enable a documentation workflow that Eduardo has in terms of producing his documentation. So now, without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Eduardo to talk to you about using properties as his own Keynote system. Thanks a lot, Eduardo.
Okay, this is session 21, using properties as a Keynote system. And to keep it short, let's discuss what we need to understand for the following. So, keynotes. Basically, keynotes, we use them just to create a label with a code. And that code eventually will have a schedule where you have the code and the description of what that means. So that means that for drawings, instead of having a lot of descriptions in the drawings, we can split it out into 2 items. That doesn't mean that we need to, we can use both. So I like to use, depending on the drawing, have code or use description based on the scale. But that's basically the item. So the ingredients or the stuff that we need to understand. So we have, in Archicad, we have classifications that define what an object is. So we can say a wall is a wall or a wall is a roof by classifications. And we can only apply them once to an object. So it's not a multiple choice system. And we have properties. And properties are interesting because we can create a lot of properties attached to an object, and usually they will be part of that object. So they will read the information there. And properties can have what are called expressions. And expressions are formulas that you use to work with the properties. Usually expressions are good because they will give you a result with based on a previous input. And if we coordinate all those inputs, those expressions are going to help us out a lot in our projects. So this particular expression we're going to use in this case is called split. And split, what it basically does is, like, if we have item A and item B, we can put a character in between those, like a colon, and then we can say split will say split item A and B at the colon and give me item 1, which is the left of the colon, and item 2, which is to the right of the colon. And in this case, I usually have, and we can go further with it, so we can go A, pipe, B, colon, C, and keep going. Eventually, it's going to become difficult to handle. But usually, for my keynotes, with only these 3 items, this split, I can work with. So, if we go back into Archicad to make it interesting, so the way I usually like to work is when I'm working defining how to do something in Archicad is like these workflows. I like to make, they have to be easy to implement. It doesn't have to take weekdays just to figure out what to do. And I like them to be hard to break. So if you're going to make a mistake, you have to spend some time to make a mistake, and you'll be surprised. So since I teach Archicad at college level, you'll be surprised how students break stuff. And even making it hard to break, I usually like them to be easy to repair. So I have different options. People that do Archicad. So some people just place information in building info, and basically that's an empty label that is easy to add, but it's a dumb label. It doesn't read information from the object. We could use objects like the multi-leader object, and it has different items that are not easy to use. It has different. It's better than using building info because we can schedule them easier and we can change them globally if we know how to work with schedules. But it has other limitations. The main one is that the data is not linked to an object. Then we can go with the manual properties, which mean that for an object, I can have a set of properties that I created, which are here. And I have them as strings, so I come here and I edit this and I say, well, this is going to be Keynote 01. And Keynote 01 will be demolition. That will be the session title. And the description is XXX. So I don't have to write it. So I go by object and assign it. So I say here, okay, and it will read them, every single label. I have created all these labels. These are property labels that have different settings. So this one's a property label that reads the PK properties section. And this system is good because basically the information is tied to an object. It's not tied to the label. But the main problem here is like I can make mistake eventually with this. If I copy this object, I can say this one, okay, well, this is going to be Keynote 02. And if I'm not careful enough, I need to remember that Keynote 02 will need another definition. So eventually I have to start finding stuff and creating it. Everything, as more objects are placed, more keynotes I have to write. Then even though I can scale them, eventually I'm gonna have could have a big mess in our hands. So it's easier to do, easier if it's a small project, it's easy to work with, and it's scalable. The problem is coordination at the end. So what can we do? Well, we can start then creating automatic properties, and by what I mean by those. So if you go here to options, and you'll see this one as a property manager. Let's close these items. And so let's go here. So I have Keynote properties. So I have a main property, 000 here, which is an option. So this is an option setup. So I have different options here. And what I did is write the option with a split command as a basis. So I have my keynotes numbers first, then I got the semicolon, which is going to be my first character as part of the split command. Then I have this huge one here, just to make sure that they have a separation and it's easier to understand for the object. So I got one item, one after another item after the colon, and then another item after description. So as long as I keep writing all these items in the same way, then I can go and create like a property for the section code. So property for section code, it says split property PK000, the first one, and give me part 1. So if I go here and I go check, so part 1, it should be shoes. If I go here, part 1 from the colon should be the number. So that should give me that item. And if I go section title, I have to do some little code here to make sure that I'm using a reference. So I created another split. It shouldn't say left, it should say split. So this reference division title is giving me all the left side after the colon. So I have one property that reads the first part, and then one property that reads the rest. And then I have a third property that reads from the rest, from this part, it will read the first part. So it will read from picking up properties description 02 and give me that information. So it's kind of like difficult, but it's not that strange scale wise. So I'm telling you, one side is like split 1 from this one will give me split 1 will give me A, and then I have another split 2 will give me B colon C, and then I have a split 3, another split that references this one, and it will give me either the B or the C based on the column. So I have a cascade of expressions. So I define these, and I'll show them later with more questions how I did them. And the good thing about here is that then I can come to this object, and instead of writing it and remember how to write it, I'll just come here and I go to properties, to the object properties, and go to part that says choose and say, okay, I'm gonna choose this one. And all the information flows to all the labels based on this. So that means that I don't have to type it. I have to type it, but I have to type it in one place. I have to type it in the properties panel. But I don't have to type it for every single project. I might not screw it up if I do a copy match properties. I might not screw them up. And the good thing here is like I find a mistake should not be 05 or the contractor to X. It should say contractor to XXYY. I go to my properties and I go here and I go to properties option setup, and I come here and it did this text here, fix mistake, and it automatically goes through every single object eventually. So this is a good way to do it. Then eventually the problem with this way is that the main issue is going to be eventually this option is going to be huge. Eventually it will start getting very big, and it will give you trouble handling the information. And we want to avoid that. We want to be efficient in how we do it. So what we can do is like two items that Archicad does very well is that, and not very well, by some strange reason, we can read as properties classifications, building materials, and finishes. We can read those three items as classifications. So that means that if I go to my property manager here, I can create keynotes by classification. And basically what I'm using here for the section code is like I'm reading split, reading the property that's called keynote classification, the classification that is split at the colon and giving me item 1. Section title should be a reference section title because I'm using 3 items. So then reference section ID and title is the same classification, and I should be reading the item 1 from D short. And I keep playing with these items of using different splits to get information here. So I'm reading, so just to make sure, I'm reading everything from the classification. So if I go here to classification manager, I got my classification 221. And the good thing here is I can create new classification in branch, and I say demo notes, and I can create this like folders, and then new classification, demo 01, and I can place this one within the demo notes, and then I have to see how I wrote the classification. So if I go here, the way I wrote it, or the way I programmed the classifications, the first part is gonna hit the colon, So I got ID, and I get this number 2. If I press I do a split 1. This one is I do a split 2. Then I have a D short description, which is going to be 3. Problem with the classifications is that Archicad will read the ID and the name, but it will not read the description. So this the part here for the description is not, you cannot use it. And the reason I need another split here is because when Archicad reads the classification, it will just type in one item, ID and name. So I need to, for the name, just to get the split, I need to have a different split symbol. So I can copy this from this one so I don't make mistakes. And I say, well, this is going to be demo note 01, and it's going to be 01 text. And I wrote it incorrectly. And then I come back here, and I'm going to copy these. And I paste it here, and I say demolition node text, and that will be the description. And I write the information there. So I go back, and what I can do is assign it to this object. So instead of going in here and looking for properties and trying to figure out where it is, then I have a nice little small section over here for classifications, and then I go, okay, I want classification here, and I'm going to select demo notes and demo notes 01. So I have a good way just to flow. It's like a section with information, then a folder, and I can keep building those. Okay, and once I fill that, it will fill everything there. The ones that do not fill might be because there are something that I missed in the sections, but I can have, I'm missing I got the demolition note 01, so I got the keynote, I got another one with the text, so that's the keynote text, so I need another one with the description, so I have to fix that. So once I start working with those, I can fix them. So let's simplify this. So classification manager, first one is gonna be space pipe text, and the second one is gonna be a colon. So this is the way I'm gonna separate them correctly. And now when I go to my properties, options, property manager, and section code is gonna be, I have to edit this. It's gonna be space pipe space and section title should be reference section code. So I have to make a reference section code, so I have to edit this one, and it's gonna be space pipe space, and I need it to be number 2 to the left, and section title is going to be reference title colon, and it should be 1, not certainly 2, and description should be section should be section title, and it should be the colon and second part. So if I did this correctly, hopefully everything will flow. See, the first one didn't work, so I have to keep playing with it and see. So I got the section code here. Perfect. So here, section code is DN01, section title is 01 text, section description short is DN blah blah blah. So I got it correctly here, so I have to fix this one. So this is text label, and it's reading a classification. So it's giving me all the information there. So this one is the one I have to fix. So let's see what's this one's reading. So on custom settings, it should be title. It should not be title. It should be, oh, it's a title. So I'm not using this one in this way. So description short. So let's fix that. That should be a square rectangle fit frame. So from this one that I wrote, I already have a label that has only the keynote. I have a label that only has the text after the colon, and I have another one that has only the text. So I got, from the way I wrote this, I have 3 elements of data coming from the basic. So the trick to set this up is basically understanding how to do the splits. But we have another option here also. Archicad will be able to read, it's able to read the building materials. So if I come here, I created a property for building materials that basically the first item is going to read the full name. So that means that what I search here in parameters is building material. So general parameters, building material is going to read the building material text. And then for the second part, I'm saying split building materials full name, add the pipe, and give me section 1, give me the one to the left. For description 2, this is a reference, it's split building material full name, add the pipe, and give me the second part. So that will give me the other item. And then for description 1 is split the reference description 1 and give me that one and the other one. So as long as I write the stuff correctly, it should read them. So if I go here to building materials, I wrote here section 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's a keynote pipe. And then I can write here colon, description, O2, and this doesn't have to be, this could be the name, the first part is going to be the schematic material, the name of the material, and the description too. So once I select this and apply it, you'll see here that the building material full name gives me that, and then how it breaks down. So I got all this information that I can read there. So if I come here and change the building material from one to another, automatically the information flows. So instead of going into the classifications and edit the items, I can just start pulling stuff basically from the material, from the building materials from the project. Same thing I can do with surfaces. So if I go here and classification manager, property manager, that's the one I go. Archicad also reads the information from surfaces. But the issue here is just to be able to use it correctly, we'll have to divide them in sequence. So what do I mean by sequence? So exterior and top surface means that I have a sequence here of items. So every expression here means a sequence. So if I set stop here surface and I double click it and I say here parameters, this means that I'm selecting this top surface that belongs to the roof. So the first item it's going to evaluate is the top surface of the roof. If I select this one, double click it, check the parameter, I have to pre-select it so that it shows me this is the top surface of the slab. And this one should be outside face surface, should be the outside for the walls. So I have to logically group these items. So that means in properties, what does this mean? This sequence means that Archicad will start looking which condition is true. So if the item I'm placing the label to is not a roof, which is the first one, then we'll come to the second one, check it's a slab. If it's a slab, give me the top surface. No, it's not a slab. Oh, it's a wall. Oh, the next one is going to be a wall. Well, if it's a wall, give me a surface. So this will give me the correct information based on the object I already selected. Then I created, it's following the same idea before, using splits, just how to get the information that I can change. So in the case for this is a wall, this is a wall, and the reason information is not flowing at this time is because I have not classified that as a wall. So I need to classify this as a wall. And once I classify it, you'll see that it starts reading information. So I have the building material, which is reading the schematic material, description 02, which is the same as the one I have applied here because it's using the same material. So it applies to both. Concrete slab, concrete wall should have basically the same items. And in addition to that, it's giving me the exterior and top surface. It's giving me the 099113A. So let's check which one is the one I have for the building materials. So for schematic, this is the surface they have, 099113. And that's the surface I applied. So it is reading the correct one and it's pulling it from the item. But the nice thing here is like I can have this wall. Let's make a copy here. And once I'm here, I can overwrite the material. So if I come here and say the material on the exterior of the wall is going to be the yellow I change here, and I'm going to put not the one in the inside. The inside I'm going to put it color violet. You'll see now that it changed. It should change the number to the other item. So if then that means I can go here and let's make sure that everything is different. Rename, let's say 50, surface material, let's say yellow, and description should be Sherwin-Williams 56098. And it changes, so that means that this works for this one, and if I apply this label to the slab, so I apply here, and I say, okay, this slab has schematic material. You'll see that, sorry, it's not schematic material. Yeah, it's going to be schematic material, but I'm going to override the surface. That's what I want to do. We can have the same material, the same paint material to both. So this way, all the information goes here. And the eventual trick I'm going to use is like I will assign the keynotes based on building materials first, surface as an override second, and classifications as third, and automatically as fourth. So not complication basic, automatically as fourth. So this way, doesn't matter where the object is, nobody can screw up because somebody comes here and says, oh, I'm gonna have to change the properties. Let's see, of these, and comes here and looks for the properties. First I have to travel all the way here, and it says no, the section code, second code, I'm in the wrong one, so even I get lost here, and I wrote it. So let's say, okay, section code should not be an expression, that should be custom, so this should be changed. So if somebody comes in and breaks it, you'll see here that says CH, the first section code change. So the slab, at least the slab is not changed, but if I need to fix it, I can come here to this object. And the only thing I need to do just to fix it is just reset the property. And that should do it. So I look for here the one that's broken. So I say here, okay, default. And I change it. So I can multiply, and it goes back to how it was. So that's basically the items that we do. Everything here can be scheduled. And the trick, before I go and start asking questions, the trick just to get the keynotes in different layouts is just to have a small property that indicates the series. So I have a scheduled keynotes by layout, and I use this to filter. So I have series 1, 8.1, 8.2, or 8.3. Usually that's good enough because most keynotes, I will have one for demolition keynotes that I can use, or I can have a property there. So once I have these I add to the one object, and eventually it will show. I use those to filter the keynotes by layouts. So it's not that difficult to do. So now I think we're gonna have to start with the questions.
Welcome, Eduardo. Thanks very much for that presentation, mate. It's another properties-based approach, which I think, for the people here in Australia and South Africa that have been going for 20 and a half hours now, it would be a lot to take in. Let's go straight to the questions. And I guess there's been some you kind of started on, I guess, a limit of the characters and the name, since Archicad won't read the description. What's the best way to capture a long string of text if the keynotes needs to be longer?
I would create another property and just tag it. But I don't think you could. It's 256. It used to be 256. So I know that used to be an issue. I don't know if it's an issue still, and even then, if you're writing a note that a description is more than 256, then that should go into the spec book. Shouldn't be in the plans.
Yeah, so a general description essentially in Archicad. In the A:(B_C) model, where C is the description, what is the length limit that can be pulled for the C value in your example? Now that was a wordy thing to say when I'm tired, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, I still think it's the same. You should be able to read them. So even if you can write the whole paragraph there, eventually it's going to be a pain to read it when you're selecting materials or building or surfaces. So keep it as short as you want. Keep it as short as if you were writing them by hand in your drawings.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You want to be able to read it, don't you?
Yeah.
Matthew, you need to go back to bed, mate. Talking about proctologists and unleashing power on the world when you're playing with colons. That's just too much. Even too much for me right now. James, can you use keynotes with materials from the composite? So that's actually a really interesting comment.
If you write the name of the composite with the same pattern with ABC, Archicad will read it. So the thing about the building the trick I did for the building materials and the surfaces apply to composites and custom profiles. So you should be able just to put stuff there. I don't know if it's going to be able to read materials fields exported into a detail. I didn't try that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, the 2D details is always a challenge.
yeah, but fills, you can say that it's a material fill. So
Yes.
yeah, but I don't know.
Well, that's when your building materials and that have to be quite powerful, and that's when you can
Yeah.
use the building material fills in your 2D details. That's a methodology that I've used and adopted so that I can note on my details that what the building materials, because it represents a generic specific product. Francois, mate, you're still going. Well done. Keep it up. Chill. In a worksheet, properties don't work, I believe. I think that's correct from memory. I'm a bit too early. Matt's, wow, Graphisoft should add an option to hide the properties used for background calculating from the end user. Yeah, yes and no, because you want to see how it's created, but then I guess sometimes you have users that are not as advanced as well.
Yeah, well, based on this trick, a regular user at the office should not have to go into properties to do anything.
Yeah.
It should stay at the top level of the system. So that should help.
Can you call up the area of a fill into an expression? I don't know. I haven't thought of that one.
I don't know. I need to try. I haven't. Well, expressions, the fills already give you the area.
No, but I think it'll give you the area for that. But you might want to do an expression and call it up into another label. Maybe that's what I'm guessing. What Francois is answering or questioning. Matthew, take care which characters are used as text eliminators. Some don't survive transfers via XML.
That we need to build a list of those.
Yeah, Matthew,
basically.
I know the amount of stuff you put into your properties, for people that haven't seen it, I think you had a few hundred or a few thousand at 2020. So you would have been copying and pasting them in and out of your template and into your project. So that's why he's talking about the XML process. Mats, what does the BIM manager say when your smart properties and names of building materials and similar show up in Celebri? Do you use Simple BIM in the end?
I haven't tried that, so
you're not so basically when you're doing that work, you're not really doing anything in terms of exporting IFCs. It's mainly just to produce documentation, right?
Well, the IFC, the first 6 numbers are based on master format or OmniClass, whatever. So they should give you that information. The next one should be the general description or overview. So it could be read easily, or it could be human readable, basically.
Yeah, it's always messy with that sort of stuff. That's why I've kept away from properties, because I want to try and I just don't export them. If I send an IFC file, I actually don't export the properties. I only just use the property sets when I export out. So therefore, whatever goes out is what I'm expecting it to read in line with the standard that I've set up. James wants to go back to the composite question. Can the building materials be shown for each within the composite rather than the wall as a whole? I don't know if it's...
I think there's a label that does that will pull the information from so you don't have to create a property for it. I think there's a specific label that will pull every single skin from the item.
There is a label that does it, but it's more about, I guess, trying to set up a keynote for it. I always treat composites as a system, so you have everything in the system, so you call out what that system's made from, and that's how I've treated walls in the past.
Yeah, that's what I do. Is wall type 1, slab type 1, wall type 2, and it's composed of these items.
Matthew Johnson, Matt's create a property group called Don't Look in Here and put all your calculating expressions in there. I love that one. Yeah, right, 1,600 properties, Matt. I knew you were up there. Luke, I think fills can't get classified and therefore can't get properties. Yeah, that's probably right. Wow. So we've finished early, unless there's more questions. So we've done a good job here, Eduardo. We've kept it lean and efficient, kept it nice and tight. We've got 1,763 registrants. We're closing out at the end. Matthew, properties can't split composite skins and expressions. You need to use label and GDL. Yep, so that answered that. Matthew, doing that, still too much. We have a shell command for simple BIM that takes away all P sets except the ones we want. Mats, I should have got you to do the next presentation on simple BIM instead of me in session 24. Maybe I should just put you on live and you can talk about it rather than me. Veronica, I have problems with my internet. All the videos are stopping. Will this live be later available in the internet? We hope to get these videos up in a couple of months' time behind a paywall. Won't be too expensive, but it'll be accessible for everyone, hopefully. Jeremiah, what's the best way to output the Keynote legend or schedule, Eduardo?
Output as in to place it on layout. You just organize it if so. I don't get what the
main question
output
is?
To. Yeah, output to what? That's if it's to Excel, there's no issue. If it's to the layout, it's just how to filter them, and if it's to BMX, then watch the previous presentation.
Yeah. Well, and the last comment there, the sun's not quite rising for Nathan yet. So as I look out the window, I can see the light starting to appear over the eastern horizon here in Australia. We're getting closer to sunrise here, and it as the morning picks up, the sun will start picking up from over on this side over here, and what we'll see is my green screen will start to appear as the sunlight hits it. So yes, to put it on the layout. So you'd save it as a view, Jeremiah. If you were to put it on the layout sheet, it'd be saved as a schedule on the layout. All right, Eduardo, thank you very much for participating and taking on the challenge. Although it's a wonderful time for you there in Puerto Rico, the time here in Australia and the logic that I have and the ability to ask very meaningful and detailed questions is starting to become limited. This is a good marathon, and I'm very impressed with the people that have lasted to watch this event. We can see it, outside beside me. You can't see the strain this is putting on people staying awake as well. So it's quite exciting, and I'm glad we're close to the end, and I'm hoping that people stick around and participate in the final sessions we got, which are really exciting. So Eduardo, thank you very much for participating. Thank you for contributing to making this event a success.
Thank you.
We'll be back in 18 minutes for session 22.